Let's go, Manny. Take it away.
Well, there was a lot of speculation of how Spence was going to look, and I think he proved that there's nothing wrong with him, and that accident was just a blip in the screen, and 14 months healed him, and it was really only just superficial facial wounds that he suffered, and he looked spectacular. And an amazing jab, great fakes, amazing pivoting, amazing footwork, amazing distance, and he controlled the entire fight, in my opinion.
Yep. And I think Garcia was I think in the beginning he got frustrated. Because there was a time where he fell down, like I think it was round one or two. He fell down, and then he was bent over at a 90-degree angle, and Spence had him hugging him, and bang bang bang. And I think he got frustrated, and it was hard for him to get up. And then his dad in the ring's going, "Yeah, come on, you got to do better. You got to do better." I'm like,
What does that mean? Very technical in terms of the way Spence was able to pivot over, and then Garcia didn't even know if he was on his left hand side or his right hand side at times, and it really frustrated him. Yeah, he used just amazing jabs, and how he'd step up like nothing would be happening, and all of a sudden Spence would throw like two quick right jabs and a left hand, and out of nowhere, and it really surprised Garcia. And Garcia just couldn't get the tempo, couldn't get the pace, and wasn't able to be in the fight really.
yeah. This is Garcia's third attempt for the world title,
Correct.
I
Yeah, he
believe.
lost to
Yeah.
Porter, and he lost to Keith Thurman.
Yeah, man, yeah. You know what? I mean, it was kind of lackluster on his part. I thought. I mean, he was tough, but he just needed to. He needed to hit, and he needed to move, and he needed to just stay busy, and he
And
wasn't
stay
busy
pressure.
enough. I
Like
mean, he'd
his
get in there and like, oh, and then weave it underneath, and it was like, fucking throw something, man, throw something. Then yeah, there was times where he didn't throw shit. Yeah.
Yeah, true. No, nothing, not taking anything away from
Oh no, exactly. Yep, yep,
Garcia.
yep.
Really, like he was in the fight, but
Mm-hmm.
just one step behind Spence. And Spence, his defense is it's hard to penetrate it. He's
Oh,
impenetrable, and
oh.
I mean Garcia just couldn't maintain any sort of constant pressure on him, and partly had to do with Garcia not really wanting to go forward. But I wouldn't want to go forward if I was missing, and then if the guy was standing on my left hand side or right hand side, and they didn't know where he was.
Exactly. He was everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he controlled the ring. I mean, Spence definitely controlled the ring.
Oh yeah, he
I
was.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, Spence was. I mean, Garcia was. I mean, he was great. He was tough, but when you're going against guys that are world class caliber and world champions like that, you got to step it up. I don't
Yeah.
think he stepped it up at all.
Yeah, that's right. And
No.
I mean, Earl Spence has the pedigree. I mean, he was in the 2012 Olympics for the USA, and he got to the quarterfinals. So it's in his blood. It's what he does, man. He was born to do it. Not to say Garcia,
Mm.
he was sort of in his blood as well. His dad got him into it when he was really young, and from Puerto Rico, and it's all he's ever really done. But he didn't attain the amateur status that Earl Spence did, and I think that makes a bit of a difference to the pedigree of the fighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the resilience, man. That's what the title was tonight. Resilience, and
Yeah,
I don't think
resilience.
the car wreck didn't fuck with him.
The big fight is Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence if they can ever make that fight. The only problem is the management. Like Earl Spence is with Al Heyman and the PBC Prime Boxing Championship, and Terrence Crawford is still with Bob Arum, but there's talk that he wants to get out of that contract.
Hmm.
So if he's able to do that, they might be able to make that fight. But if if Terrence Crawford can't get out of the grip of Bob Arum, that fight will probably never be made, because why would Bob Arum want to risk Terrence Crawford not being able to beat Errol Spence, right? It's unfortunate that that's what it's come to, but it's a lot different than the UFC, that they basically control all the top fighters. In boxing, they got certain promoters that control certain fighters, and certain promoters don't want to put their best guys in against another promoter's best guy, because then their meal is basically going to be gone if they lose.
How good is Spence? I when I see Terrence Crawford fight, right? I see
Yeah.
that the switch hitting, right? To me, that's something I've never seen before, right? But does he really pose a threat to Terrence Crawford?
I think he does pose a threat because he's a very consummate professional. He's very hard to hit. Like he has a real high guard, and it's very hard to penetrate him. And I think he'd be a tough opponent for anyone because he's got such good lateral movement, like Jerry was saying, and he's here and he's there, and he's got great distance. He's got good pivots. He's got good angles. And I mean, he would give anyone a difficulty. So even, like some of the greatest welterweights, such as Roberto Duran or Sugar Ray Leonard or Thomas Hearns, he would give anyone historically a real tough time. Whether he'd be able to beat those type of guys, I'm not really sure, but I'd love to see a Terrence Crawford. I hope Terrence Crawford can get out of the jam that he's in with Bob Arum and fight the best like he says he wants to do. Did you guys notice how Danny Garcia's gloves seemed so much smaller than Errol Spence's gloves? Did you guys notice that? Like those purple gloves he had on, didn't they look small?
Yeah, they definitely did.
And that's really, it's a weird thing because the Reyes boxing glove, they have a lot of the padding on the wrist, right? And not as much on the knuckles, because the boxing glove goes by the weight of the glove. It doesn't necessarily mean that the weight has to be on the padded knuckle part, where like the gloves, like he had Everlast gloves, Errol Spence, and they tend to be pretty small gloves too. But the Grant gloves have a lot of padding on the knuckles, and that's why like Floyd Mayweather mostly wore Grant gloves, because he had like his hands were very tender, and they didn't want to break them, so he wanted the padding
the brittle
on the
hands,
knuckles,
right?
So fighters, brittle hands, so fighters can choose the glove that they want to wear nowadays. Where back in the day, if you see the picture behind me here, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, they both had Everlast. You never got to choose. But even back when I was boxing, we never got to choose the gloves. They assigned us gloves, and they were always the same make of glove. Whereas this is a more recent thing in boxing, where the fighters are actually able to choose the glove that they want to wear. And some are considered puncher gloves. Others are considered more, like blocking gloves or to save your hands, right?
I remember that was a thing in the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight about horsehair in the gloves.
With
like,
gloves.
Can you explain that? And Jerry, maybe touch on that with the kickboxing world. But yeah, Manny, what is that about?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think Floyd was trying to just ramble up some what's the word? Some controversy about, Connor's going to get these gloves. I'm not going to let him wear those gloves because they're not
Mind
legally
games.
sanctioned and this and that. Yeah, mind games basically. And I mean, Floyd, it wouldn't have mattered because Connor, I'm 100% convinced that Floyd he played for 10 rounds until he wanted to stop him, and he stopped him, and he just wanted to make a game of it. He just wanted to. Very similar to what happened with the Tyson Roy Jones match. I can almost guarantee you Mike Tyson could have taken Roy Jones out a lot. If he went to started throwing those body shots to the head, Roy wouldn't have been able to sustain that. And the same thing with Floyd. He was just playing with Connor in my eyes.
Yeah, the gloves in the kickboxing world, you didn't get to choose your gloves. They chose the gloves for you.
Simple as that. So no.
But you know what? Maybe nowadays it might be different, Jerry. I don't know, because we competed way back in the day, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. I do movies now.
Yeah, exactly. But I know in boxing, it's a recent phenomenon that the boxers get to choose the gloves that they want to wear.
Freaky, yeah.
And they always have two gloves, because you have to pick the gloves you're going to wear into the ring, and then you have to pick your backup glove in case it's ripped. Yeah. Because if you remember back in, I think it was 1964, Muhammad Ali was fighting Henry Cooper in Wembley Stadium. And Muhammad Ali came back to the corner, and Angelo Dundee, his brilliant trainer, he saw a little tear in the glove of Muhammad Ali. And, he had to investigate, like he couldn't, he just had to know how bad that tear was. But we got to remember that in the fourth round, Muhammad Ali got knocked down by Henry Cooper. Like he was put on his ass with a left hook, and he didn't know where he was when he came back to the corner. So Angelo saw that little rip, and he just investigated and put his finger in it. And guess what? The rip got really big, so he couldn't fight with the gloves. So they had to look for another glove, but they didn't have a glove at ringside, because at that time they didn't have that rule that you had to have a backup pair of gloves. So they spent, minutes, 3 or 4 minutes looking for gloves. They couldn't find gloves, and guess what? They just let him continue with the ripped glove. But it bought Muhammad Ali like 4 or 5 minutes of extra time to recuperate from that knockdown. That could have changed history, because had Henry Cooper been able to get right out there after 1 minute, he may have been able to finish Muhammad Ali, and it would have really changed history. But who knows?
That's true.
I just want to ask about your thoughts on the co-main. That guy, 6'5", eh? Super tall.
He looked a freak, eh? Sebastian Fundora.
Ooh.
He's going to be a hard guy to beat by anybody, really. That uppercut, eh, Jerry? Did you see that?
His uppercut.
Quick uppercut.
It's funny because I saw the guy and I went, "Oh my God, look how skinny his legs are."
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yes, he was like a toothpick. But when he started punching, I'm going, "What the fuck?" Yeah, the uppercut. Yeah, and Ahmed, he needed to get inside, and he was too frustrated. Yeah, I mean, come on, somebody. He was 6'6", was 6'5". Yeah, 6'5", 6'6". Yeah. Fighting somebody like that, yeah, you can't stay on the outside. You got to get on the inside, and if you don't, yeah, you're pretty much screwed.